The world saw a fairy tale, a blushing bride marrying the city's most powerful billionaire. But when I looked into the cold, gray eyes of the man who destroyed my family, I knew this wasn't marriage. It was the beginning of his end. As the organ music swelled, everyone else heard a celebration. I heard a war drum. My name is Alara Vance, and this is how I got my revenge. I could barely hear the officiant. As I stood at the altar across from Damian Blackwood, his handsome face was a perfect mask of indifference. He was buying a wife to seal a merger, and I was a pedigreed product he needed. He thought I was desperate. He wasn't wrong, just not for the reasons he imagined. As he started his vows, his voice a low, confident rumble, the chapel around me melted away. I wasn't in a wedding gown anymore. I was back in a black dress, standing in the freezing rain outside a cemetery. The smell of lilies was gone, replaced by the scent of damp earth. Just 3 months ago, we buried my father. A heart attack, the doctor said. I knew better. He died of a broken spirit, shattered by the very man who was now sliding a diamond ring onto my finger. The memory was sharp and cruel. My father, a kind man who built his company from nothing, pleading in a glass boardroom, and a younger Damian Blackwood, his face showing no mercy as he systematically tore my father's life's work apart. It's just business, Damian had said, but he'd made it personal. He hunted my father's company with a predatory glee, swallowing a whole and leaving our family with nothing but debt and grief. After the funeral, our once happy home was filled with suffocating silence. It was in that silence that I found my new purpose. Buried in my dad's old office, I found a note about Blackwood Industries' future plans. Turns out, Damian desperately needed to acquire a traditional European company, and its old-fashioned patriarch would only deal with respectable, married CO. Damian Blackwood needed a wife, and I needed a way inside his life, his company, his fortress. He took everything from my family. I would become his wife, earn his trust, find his secrets, and then I would take everything from him. We met only once before the wedding in his sterile, sky-high office. He didn't even offer me a seat. He just slid a prenup across his massive desk. This is a contract to Lara, he said, his voice as cold as the marble floor. In public, you'll be charming, elegant, and quiet. In private, we are strangers. Understand. I looked at the man who ruined my family without a hint of remorse, swallowed the rage burning in my throat, and whispered, I understand. He had no idea what I really understood. He saw a broken girl he could control. He just willingly opened the gates to his worst enemy. Living in Damian's penthouse was like living in a beautiful, empty museum. It was a monument to his wealth and power, but it had no soul, just like him. Those first few weeks were a silent war. His very presence was an oppressive weight, his indifference a constant insult. He treated me like another one of his companies, an asset to be polished and displayed when needed. But I wasn't there for his affection. I was there for revenge. By day, I played the part of the perfect, docile wife. By night, I became a ghost in my own home, slipping into his study to photograph documents, piecing together the architecture of his empire. I was looking for the one weak spot, the one secret that, if I pulled it, would bring the whole thing crashing down. And then things got complicated. I couldn't sleep one night and was walking past his study when I heard his voice. The usual steel was gone. It sounded gentle. I pressed my ear to the door and heard him talking to his younger sister on the phone, actually laughing with her, promising he'd be there for her graduation. A crack in the marble. A few days later, a thank you letter arrived from a children's hospital for a massive, anonymous donation that funded an entire pediatric cancer wing. I traced it. It came from one of Damian's private accounts. This was the monster who destroyed my father, and he was saving sick children. The lines were starting to blur. He started seeing me as more than just a prop. 2. He expected me to be meek, but instead, he saw me hold my own at tense corporate dinners, charming his partners with a wit he never saw coming. I'd catch him watching me from across a room with a flicker of curiosity, maybe even respect, in his eyes. The air between us started to crackle with something that wasn't just hate. It was something far more dangerous. My plan was working. I found it. The linchpin. A secret, heavily leveraged side deal that was propping up his entire company. If I leaked it, it would trigger a domino effect that would obliterate Blackwood Industries. My finger hovered over the send button on an encrypted email to a journalist. But I hesitated. The sound of his laugh, the letter from the hospital, they flashed in my mind. That's when a rival corporation launched a vicious smear campaign against Damien, using fake evidence of fraud. The irony was suffocating. If they succeeded, Damien would be ruined, but not by me. My revenge would be stolen, and a man I knew was even worse would win. I had an impossible choice. Let him burn, or save the man I came here to destroy. That night, I walked into his study. "You're being played," I said, laying out the proof I'd found. For the first time, he looked at me not as a wife or a stranger, but as an equal. We spent all night hunched over documents, fueled by coffee and a shared goal. The walls between us didn't just crack. They crumbled. We did it. We combined a strategic mind with my intel and exposed the entire plot. We saved the company. In the quiet aftermath, standing in his office as the sun rose, the adrenaline faded, leaving something raw and real behind. The hatred that had defined us was gone, replaced by this deep, unspoken understanding. He turned to me, his gray eyes no longer cold, but filled with emotion I couldn't name. He stepped closer, and my entire plan for revenge simply vanished. The next morning, I woke up in his arms, a feeling of peace washing over me that I hadn't felt in years. It was a beautiful, dangerous lie. When I slipped out of the room, he stirred. His eyes fell on my handbag, which had spilled on the floor, and peeking out was a file. My entire revenge plan, in black and white. When I came back with coffee, he was standing by the window, holding a single piece of paper, the proof of his secret deal, the weapon I was supposed to use to ruin him. The silence was crushing. "Was any of it real?" he finally asked, his voice rough with betrayal. It all came pouring out. My father, the grief, the rage that drove me to him. I told him everything. For the first time, I saw Damien Blackwood look truly broken. He didn't defend himself. He just listened. Then he told me his story. How his own family was destroyed by a rival when he was just a boy, and how that loss forged him into the merciless businessman he was today, vowing to never be the victim again. We were two sides of the same coin, shaped by the same fire. He walked to his desk and put my file down. "You have what you came for," he said, his voice heavy. "You can still do it. Leak the information. Ruin me after what I did to your father. Maybe I deserve it." He was giving me the choice. The power was mine. I held the fate of the man I'd sworn to destroy and somehow had come to love in my hands. I looked at the file, the symbol of all my hate. Then I looked at him, at the man who had shown me his vulnerable side, who had trusted me. Ruining him wouldn't bring my father back. It would just turn me into the same kind of monster he used to be. I picked up the file, walked to the fireplace, and threw it in. I realized justice didn't have to mean destruction. Together, we found another way. We used the information I'd gathered not to destroy his company, but to transform it. We exposed the dirty practices, forced a complete restructuring, and used the profits from the division built on my father's work to launch a massive charitable foundation in his name. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. If you love stories with messy romance, hard-won justice, and watching powerful people get what they truly deserve, make sure you like this video. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe for more stories that blur the lines between love and hate. We tore up the prenup. We sold the penthouse. We found a smaller place, one we could actually call home, filled with warmth and light. The power games are over. The secrets are gone. Our story started with a lie, built on a foundation of pain and deception. But from those ashes, we chose to build something real. It's no fairy tale, but it's ours. And for the first time, it feels like home.